We are live.
Hey everybody, welcome into SJGames Live. No intro this week. We're doing a direct stream from not Twitch, Zoom onto Twitch. So we got a lot of stuff going on the little keyboards and everything here. But we have today with us, we have excuse me, we have Jean McGuire and Christopher Rice, who are both authors in the latest Hexagram issue, which is just went live on Kickstarter about a minute and a half ago. So welcome on in. Let me check to make sure I can see our chat because I've got that in a different window that I've minimized.
Yeah, I see chat.
I closed the Twitch window. Let me reopen the Twitch window so I can see chat. There we are. All right, I'm just making sure that's going through. All right, so welcome in. First off, Christopher, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Christopher R. Rice. I am a freelance author and game designer and blogger. I mostly do GURP stuff, but I like TFT because it's a little more simplified and you get to see the roots of one of my favorite game engines ever. And that's not exactly something that's entirely common these days. I kind of like the old school feel of Sidri in general, and I like writing magazine articles. So we've got over 70 at this point.
Thank you for being here. We
Thank
also
you
have
for
Jean McGuire with us. Jean?
Yeah, well, I've been a gamer for longer than a lot of my friends have been alive. I own Winter Tree Software, which is a tiny little software company that, with a program called Table Master, that generates zillions of random things from tables. So I write table-related articles for Hexagram, and I'm also the STL project manager at Steve Jackson Games. Do 3D, work on the 3D print projects. And I originally played Aid Melee when it came in a little plastic bag, and I've been a Fantasy Trip fan ever since.
Thank you for being here. And just so everybody knows, we've got a link in the chat there for the Hexagram 12 Kickstarter that just went up. Thank you, Daryl. And that is going to be up for 9 days, it looks like. We already have refresh 9 backers. But yeah, this is for Hexagram 12. If you're not familiar with Hexagram, it is a gaming zine, largely for the Fantasy Trip system. But a lot of the things in there can probably be adapted for other fantasy role-playing systems. A lot of little small articles, tables, adventure hooks, that sort of thing. So this is the 12th one we're doing because we're doing partly with Kickstarter Zine Month. We're doing another one of those. So a lot of little gaming zines going out this month. So keep an eye out for those if that's your thing. Hopefully it is. At least hopefully this one is. And let me go ahead and pull up the thing so we can see it here. Too many windows to keep track of. Wrong window. Where's the Zoom window? There it is. I'm going to share the Hexagram. So Hexagram 12, we've got several articles in here, including articles by Christopher and Jean here. Our 2 main backer levels are, oh look, it's us. We're going to have a digital only level for Hexagram and a physical and digital tier. And then everything else is adding on more bits that have been published for the system. Quick quests, melee, the new Fantasy Trip Bestiary, all sorts of things. So go ahead, and Daryl's got a lot of options on there for us. What's inside? So there's a demo scenario by Irene, quick adventures, illustrations, a few spreads, hunger and thirst guidelines, some guests. Hey, look, I'm market. So go ahead and hop on this. It's going to run for slightly over a week. And we'll go ahead and hop back over to the cameras folks here. And I'll watch chat. Chat, if you guys have questions about Hexagram or for either of our authors here, feel free to ask, and we will try to get those asked for you. There's Twitch. Oh, not in the right screen to see chat anymore. It popped out of it. There we go. Okay, and then to get started, let's see, what's our first question I've got on my list here? For each of you, what do you feel makes a good zine article?
Well, for me,
You
I
wanna
think
take
it
this
should
one?
be self-contained, that it doesn't rely on any other article on something from 6 months ago. That the big thing is it should be a nugget of stuff you can take and use right away.
Christopher?
I think that's a two-pronged answer for me. So Gene hits it right on the head. I think that in general, magazine articles for games should be a fairly self-complete entity. Occasionally, you might need to rely on the game engine itself to understand a different concept. But I kind of break it up into like short stuff and long stuff. So like short stuff needs to be punchy and ready to use and easy to use at the table, and the longer stuff can be a little bit more like a essay at times. I mean, it shouldn't be boring, but it should cover the concept that you're trying to go for as fully as possible, leaving less guessing for the end user as much as possible. I think that the typical writing style of Steve Jackson Games is really spot on for that sort of thing. Like they leave a lot of things implicit in the text. And while that can cause issues sometimes, I think that it lets them squeeze in more information in a way that doesn't cause, information fatigue, when you're trying to take in a lot of stuff. So I really feel like you need to either be short and punchy and to the point, or you need to make it a little longer and put as much as you can in a way that isn't either boring or fatiguing. That's just the way I feel.
One crucial thing about Hexagram is that since it's so small, the articles by their nature have to be short. So there's no room for flab or excess wordiness.
Yeah, verbosity, no.
Chat says, back. So when is a Quick Quest appearing from Bestiary? I see it offered here. I believe that's Quick Quest 10. I believe the project says those are being delivered in May. May 2024 for the tier that includes Hexagram 12 and Quick Quest 10. Let's see, what types of articles do you prefer to write, and have you had any favorites?
I think that's more to Christopher because what I write is always tables.
I love tables. So if I can put a random roll table in anything I'm working on, I do it. Favorite sort of article to write. So for TFT, I really like the idea of discrete bits of let's call it nutritionally useful information for the GM to be able to plop down in his game. Like I wrote an article on inns and taverns, and that was just fun for me, at least. I got to stretch my legs a little and got to be a little creative and got to be useful. I really personally prefer the longer articles, like some of the stuff that appeared in Pyramid that I did. And I don't know if I have a favorite article I've written so far. Um, I really like writing about traps and monsters. I guess that's just my D&D road showing. I should
Some
die.
of the classic dungeon crawl stuff.
I really should dye my roots at some point, but I'm proud of them, and I just like to show them off. And dye is so expensive. Um, I, I I can't really run that sort of stuff anymore for long. It doesn't hold my attention, but I could write about it all day long, um, all day long. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's it.
Looks like Daryl chimed in that the Bestiarian Foes 2 are going to be shipping in coming weeks here. So those will actually be going out sooner if you've already got them from the previous project, it looks like. And so the tavern you were talking about, was that like uh, the place itself and the staff and little hooks for starting in them, or is it for like generating taverns themselves?
It's sort of like for generating your kind of random tavern that shows up, and what class it is. Is it a dive bar, or is it catering to nobles, that sort of thing. And I had an example in the back I called the Kitty Wumpus. Um, and it basically had a cat show along with like a literal animal training, house cat show. They would do tricks and stuff. I really like that.
Nice.
I got to see a picture of a cat on a stool in a particular uh, issue of Hexagram, and I was like, "That's from my article. That's cool."
Let's see. What is different in your approach to writing shorter form content for zines and things like that, rather than the longer articles or full on book sort of content? Do you have different way that you approach those things?
I'll take that one while Christopher's thinking, because I have both, short tables like you'll find in the articles. And then on Drive Through RPG, I sell my 1001 Things files, which are generated by Table Master using tables that can be a couple thousand lines long. Things are huge. And the big difference, I think, for me is I'll start with something larger and then, kill your darlings, just start whacking. Cut this, cut that, until I cut it down to something that fits. And I think I do that with written stuff as well. I used to write a newspaper column and drive my editor crazy, but maybe hard to edit, about computers, not games. And I've written for Dragon and such. And based on the available space, I really start with something big and make it smaller, which is probably why I'm terrible at short form content.
So I do actually approach shorter stuff differently than I do longer stuff. So I do lots of outlines. Um, I used to be a pants writer, just let it flow right in my head, and my structure wasn't that great. And Nikki Vertus and Stephen Marsh set me down one day, and they were like, "Okay, we're going to show you how to structure stuff." I was like, "Oh, okay, I thought I was doing good." And they took the time to really drill it into my head. And one of the things that Nikki says is I always have an outline. So if you're only writing, 500 words, always have an outline. And I always have an outline. It's just the difference between, the shorter and the longer is I tend to write an encapsulation, a mission statement, if you will, for the longer stuff so that I can go back and refer to it. The shorter stuff is just sort of, here's what I want to do, here's my ideas, and then I try to plug them in. And Gene is totally right on killing your darlings. I'm working on GURPS Metatech right now, and I had to get rid of two things in there that I absolutely loved. I thought they were brilliant and amazing, And my playtesters are like, no, here is something simpler. And I was like, hate that you're right. I'm gonna go cry in the corner. Excuse me, baby goes to the corner. And like I
But
looked
my
at it the
thing-
next, yeah, I looked at it the next day and I was like, you're right. I can't be mad at you. I want to be mad at you, but I can't be mad at you. And that tends to happen with me. Like I have this great, awesome, wonderful idea, and then someone I know or trust will be like, nah, you need to redo that. My girlfriend's awesome for that. She'll be like, yeah, this is nice, but this will be better. I just spent 3 hours on this. You tell me I got it. She's, yeah, you got to redo it. I'm gonna go make some
That's the
popcorn.
way. That's the way game design goes a lot of the times. Like, oh, this is a great whole thing. You're like, yeah, there's like 50 billion bits of tracking we have to do between turns if we do it that way. So maybe lose 80% of that.
It can be frustrating and exhilarating at the same time, and it's like you know you're getting better just by doing it, but sometimes, man, you just want to go punch wood and like touch grass at the same time.
We're up to 40 backers already.
All right, good, getting up there. And we're live on the page too. It looks like Daryl's embedded the stream in the backer kit page, or not backer kit, the Kickstarter page. So hi Kickstarter. Let's see, what else do we have on the list of questions? If you guys have questions out there for us, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you're over on Kickstarter, you may have to hop over to Twitch to actually ask the question. But go ahead and hop in and give us want to know, let's ask if you have anything you want to know. We may or may not be able to answer it, but we'll try. Let's see, what are some of the favorite articles that appeared in Hexagram over the years, either yours or someone else's?
I actually really liked I think it was Deadly Traps and Hexagram 1 by Steve Jackson. I mean, I like traps, so I actually used that in a dungeon fantasy game and it worked out really well.
It doesn't like thumbing through Grim Truths.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick one, it would be the Headmaster. That is just the weirdest concept for a monster or villain, and I love it.
I didn't see that one. What is the Headmaster? I hesitantly ask.
It's essentially a guy who carries around a bunch of severed heads in cages, and they can, give him information, etc. I forget which issue of Hexagram that was in, 6? A while back. If I try to get the issue out, I'll disrupt my green screen and all sorts of things will go bad.
Was that a Pulver article?
It might have been. It was good enough to be.
Looks like it was number 4, probably.
4. I knew it was back in the beginning somewhere.
That's the one it's mentioned in on
Yeah.
the content blurbs there.
But that was the sort of thing that I like, in that it was a good, ready to use, piece you could drop in somewhere. It was extremely well written. It was a unique concept. It wasn't the, umpteenth iteration of an orc, and I just loved it.
Sounds like it would make a great mini.
I was reminded of the Hat Ghost from the Haunted Mansion Disney ride, and that thing always scared the crap out of me when I read that article. I remember that's the first thing that popped into my head, and like I'm sitting here thinking of the holographic, box that they've got, and the guy, he's wearing black on his head, so you can't actually see if he's got a head. And he's holding the box, and ooh, scary.
So those early effects. All right, let's hop back over to the get the right window to present it here. We're back up on the screen to show what we're looking at. There we go. This one. So for those of you that may have joined us a little bit late here, We just launched Hexagram 12 for the fantasy trip. So this is almost halfway to its goal already, or over halfway to its goal already. There we go. 9 days to go. But this is for the most recent issue of Hexagram for Kickstarter Zine Month. So we've been doing these since I think their first Zine Quest for the fantasy trip role-playing system, which is a sort of precursor to GURPS. It was Steve's first role-playing system that he wrote. And it's a lighter kind of classic fantasy style set in the world of Sidri. But these are a lot of little articles that can be dropped into pretty much any comparable fantasy world. Let's talk about what articles you guys have in here. Jean, why don't you tell us about your markets article?
Okay, well, obviously, every fantasy campaign, the players say, well, we're hitting a town, we'll go to the market and buy X. But is it there? Is that a sort of thing that the market even sells? And then how big is the market? What is there? What's it like? Is there a lady with an apple cart that the chase can knock over? Because the answer to that one, by the way, is yes. Chase scenes always require someone with apples.
Or cabbages.
Or cabbages, yeah.
Yeah, cabbages will work. Let me see if I can get this up on my other screen so I can talk about specific bits of it. It's somewhere here.
While you're looking for that, as an aside, I heard they actually got the voice actor who did that line
Yes.
to
Yes.
be in the show as that role.
I'm looking forward to that show. I'm a huge Avatar fan, so I hope it's good. I'm an atheist, but I pray it's good. Like, God, I haven't talked to you in forever, but I need you to make this show good for me. Yes, my son, I will come down to Earth and perform the miracle of the Avatar. Thanks, God.
Well, it'd be nice to see Avatar getting a live action attempt. This
There
has never
was no
happened
first
before.
attempt. Yeah, that's right. There was no first attempt.
Jean, did you find what you're looking for?
Yeah, I just pulled it up here. I've got, 3 screens for the PC, 3 tablets. My desk is a bit chaotic with screens. But the markets table is based on the size of the town you're going into. South Podunk is not going to have the same size market as, the big city of Podunk Center. And it covers the markets, the goods that are available there, details about the merchants who have them, little quirks those merchants might have. A few of them that Steve suggested, like has a big pet dog. Steve and I got sitting around one night and just bouncing off ideas for merchant quirks. And one of the things I like of this is it's got a simple description system that you can actually use for anything. Because, for any given characteristic, there's just a couple of rolls for whether it's unusual. If so, unusual in a high fashion or a low fashion. For example, you want to roll whether someone's notably dressed. And if you roll that, yes, it's unusual, high, they're wearing fancy clothes. Very unusual, low, they're wearing rags. And while that's intended for the market merchants, you can use that for any NPC you want. And this actually, in violation of my suggestion about not referring to other things, does mention in using the O'Donorain street scenes to get ideas for people and their descriptions. That was one of my earlier tables. One of the earlier hexagrams. So basically, this would work with your fantasy trip game, or your Dungeons and Dragons game, or if you make a couple of changes, your cyberpunk game, just change the goods.
Pretty much anywhere there's going to be some merchant markets here.
Anywhere with apples.
Anywhere with apples, there you go.
Anywhere with apples, yes.
Yeah, but in cyberpunk, the apples are like spliced. They're crisper, crispy apples.
If you're doing space, just
They
it's a
make
Martian
green
apple. Right?
pharmaceuticals.
There you go.
Hold on, let me get my penicillin. Apple a day.
Enhanced apples.
We do have some questions in chat. Gerald says, Chris, of the new 4 units you described in your article, which was your favorite between Kelp, Kudzu, Skull Rose, and Terror Vine?
So something most people probably don't know about me, but it's not a secret. I have night terrors. And I've had night terrors since I was like a toddler. And one of the things that helped me through it is when I was about 7, I had a psychologist that was like, okay, you need to keep a dream journal. And I've kept a dream journal since. So I have what's called the nightmare file. And if something scares me enough, that I think about it after I wake up, I put it in the nightmare file, and then I sort of use the description from the dream to sort of punch it up and make it more interesting, and then use it in my work. And I have to say that the Terravine was just that was a bad night that turned into a great bit of writing later on. The Skull Rose is something that my grandfather told me about. My grandfather's a Native American, and he used to have all sorts of stories, and he would tell me about this stuff when I was a kid. It used to scare the crap out of me, and that was one of
You know
them.
why you have night terrors?
No, I wish I could blame it on the old man, but like they kind of run in my family. So too much dopamine at the wrong time while asleep and make a brain go boom boom. So yeah, when I do that sort of thing, I try to draw from personal experience of all sorts. I kind of fall back on my heritage a lot, and just my general knowledge of folklore. I've pretty in-depth knowledge of most mythologies. But yeah, the Terravine, that hands down, that thing is. Mm-mm,
No good.
mm-mm.
I should put in a plug for a Steve Jackson Games product here. In the Wiz War Wizards STL pack, there is an excellent thorny vine that could be painted up very well for some of Christopher's terrors.
I think he's going to pass on that one.
I'm absolutely crap at painting things. Like my girlfriend, she's an amazing miniature painter. She used to do it like literally for a living for the guys at our store. She would charge X amount of dollars for X amount of figures, and she would just come up with these beautiful miniatures, BattleTech, D&D, Palladium, whatever, and she would just make these things, and they were amazing. I can't do that.
You have a 3D printer? I'll send you a vine.
You're so mean.
That's how I feel every time Ben's in the office here. It's like, man, I can't paint anything.
Gene's like, I'm gonna send you a vine. Look, just look at it. Be scared every time. It's a little one though, so you get a little micro doses. So it won't be scared of it eventually because it's so tiny.
Of course, you can
we got a long one here. Paul says, the zines of old are understandably amateurish in production values. Thanks mostly to technology, today even a single person could crank out a zine of high production value. But the word is still what makes or breaks it. Beyond the use of word processing and similar, how was writing for today's zine changed from the ones of yesterday? And do you think AI will prove a help or a hindrance? So how is writing for a modern zine changed that from, say, old school zines, or has it? And do you think AIs are going to help or hinder this sort of content in the future?
Well, from a writer's point of view, I don't think the production really matters. You know, I would send off, back in the day, a typed manuscript, well, a printed manuscript on a 9-pin dot matrix printer, and expect it to reappear in that self-addressed stamped envelope if they didn't want it. And that was really no different if I was doing something for an obscure little zine or a Dragon magazine. And it really, the only difference from a writer's point of view, I think, is we do it by email now.
I am not one to speak on old versus new. I've only been writing professionally since about 2011. That said, I did submit a bunch of stuff back in the day to Dragon and Rifter. And it doesn't really seem to be that much different from the writer side of things. From the production side, though, I think that we have come a long way for what the tools were originally. I got to see basically a newspaper layout when I was in high school, and comparing that now to just a couple of clicks with something like InDesign, it boggles me. Like, yeah, time marches on, and so does technology, but Paul's absolutely right. You can have one person deliver some really high quality material if they put the time into it. It doesn't even have to have a lot of effort really for layout. It's not the effort that's the problem. It's like the learning curve, which is just time. So if you've got a lot of time, you can make something really fantastic. I mean, amazing. Some of these people, I look at them and it's pure awe. I've been learning layout myself, and you like most millennials, I watch YouTube and try to see what people are doing and try to assimilate those tricks into my bag of tricks. And some of the stuff is just so effortlessly easy, but like you have to remember how to apply and do this and do the shortcut because it's easier than going through the menus. And as far as AI goes, I don't know. That's up in the air. I don't even know how I personally feel about it as far as ethics go. I don't know. There's
That's
a
a big
lot.
topic.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on both sides, and I hate to be a both sidisms kind of guy, but I mean, if we could figure out how to ethically source the material it takes for the AI to learn, I would feel much more comfortable with it. But as it stands, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't
I think
know.
that's like that's my big issue with a lot of them is how it's trained. Like you can get the engines and train it on your own pool of stuff. So say you want to take every article you've written and train the AI just on those and say, okay, now write me a draft in my style on this and then revise it from there. That's a lot less problematic than training on those people's work. And then I'm going to put it out over here. But as far as the old versus new on the zine stuff, I think a lot of it does come down to production side over the writing side. In some of the old files in the office, I've come across some of the old paste up books and stuff before they were doing digital editing here. And so that's it looks like I've seen some of the tools out. It's definitely an art form, but I can see how it could take a lot more time and a lot more effort than giving InDesign or some other software the things say flow this around here and put this image on page 4 and flow stuff around it, and then renumber the pages automatically and just auto link those pages wherever they're referenced somewhere else. So I think the software technology there has made it less of an art form. You still have to learn the best ways to present it, but the actual skill of piecing it together and rearranging it takes a lot less time now because it's all digital, and it does allow one person to do that a lot faster than having like, oh, this is not as big a deal and say a 30-page zine as a 128-page book, but definitely like keeping like, oh, I want my fonts to be these 3 fonts the whole thing, and all my spacing is this, and all my spacing is that here. So I think to answer Paul's question, the production part of it is what has probably changed the most via technology and time rather than the writing part of it.
In my mandatory weird jobs history that every geek must have, I actually did that at one point. I can probably still run a Comp 4 typesetter. and we did layup with boards and wax. And there was the reason I was actually the classified ad manager and the computer person. But the reason I was doing layup was on layup night. This was for a little advertising paper. It was all hands on deck. And when the typesetter person wasn't available, I went on the typesetter. I could put together display ads back when clip art was clipped with scissors. And that has changed.
Art.
Yes. We had books of it, and they needed a car picture for an auto dealer's ad. You went and clipped out the appropriate one. And or sometimes because we were cheap and copied the previous week's ad and then clipped it from the Xerox. So you would see this picture being successively degraded through various weeks of ads. But the difference between that and, what someone like, well, even me can do right now, let alone someone like Ben. When I switched the Table Master manual over from Dead Trees to PDF, I decided to get fancy with it and spent an afternoon sitting there completely, re-editing and reformatting the Table Master manual, and came up with something that would have taken me a week to do, even originally, when he was originally written in a word processor in 1993. And yes, I've been hacking it in various ways for exactly that many years, but it's just gotten so much more efficient.
I think that is absolutely brilliant. That is becoming a lost art that we need to save. That and the arcane art of indexing. Most production and layout software now will do that for you. And that does not necessarily make a good index. You need to really dig in. And you know who's brilliant at indexing though? Nikki. I have never come across a GURPS index that wasn't actually useful. And I blame Nikki for that 100%.
Yeah, the tables of contents and indexes can vary widely in gaming products. And sometimes they're missing entirely, and you really need those, especially for an RPG. You really need to have those in there, unless you're a 12-page RPG or something like. But yeah, I've seen some that are just not good or just wildly off or missing big things. So yeah, GURPS ones are generally pretty solid.
Yeah,
that was one of the things when I moved Table Master manual to PDF. I went through and really did the index because I wasn't constrained by page count. The original Dead Trees manual was limited by how thick it could be, and then the box would still close because they were going in DVD cases, and I was at my page limit. I tried folding up pieces of paper to make it bigger, and nope, if I put in another sheet, the box wouldn't close. So the index had to be a little restricted because of that and only hit major points. When I went to the PDF, I could expand and have it index every reference to, say, a particular system variable instead of just where it was originally described and defined. I think that improved the index considerably. It also made it about twice as big, so the box wouldn't have closed.
I also think some of those are awesome. You should see the Deluxe Bestiary PDF. I assume that Nikki's or somebody has really taken on the indexing of that one.
Good.
Let's see, we do have some other questions here. Paul says, so an example where I was going with his previous question, thanks to the internet, people tend to have much greater understanding of the fandom. How much harder does that make writing for the audience?
You sure do.
I don't know if it changes that a whole lot. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
You sure do get yelled at a lot more. It used to be you have to go
more immediate feedback.
Something and people would hunt you down and be like, I hate your work for these 99 reasons. And now it's like, I'm going to Reddit and I'm going to eviscerate you with word. Okay, well, thanks for reading it. No, I didn't really read it. I let an AI go through it and pick apart why it was terrible. Okay. I'm gonna go over in the corner again and cry.
You used to have to track you down at a convention for that.
Exactly.
Let's go ahead.
I think maybe to some people, fandom is a dirty word, right? So I mean, there are toxic fandoms out there, and it's like, oh, and you don't want that sort of toxicity to kind of spill over into your fandom. And then when you find it, it's like, oh, and you kind of like want to go out there and be like, that not all of us are like this. And then other times it's like, I'm just gonna let this guy burn out like a little dwarf star, little teeny dwarf star, collapse in on himself because he's so negative.
Yeah, there's a percentage in most fandoms that are just the ones that are on the highly critical end.
And then you get the ones that come up to you like, man, your work is awesome, and you're like, well, I needed that. Thank you.
I think my best one was a lady I ran into at a convention who said her husband, there was a 16-year hiatus in Winter Tree Software. Around 2000, I shut the company down because Magic the Gathering had sucked all the money out of the industry. And I was being pulled into website design and such. And then I got back to it in 2016. But a woman I ran into in a convention a couple of years later came over to my table and told me her husband had kept an old computer around, old 16-bit computer that could run the original version of Table Master because it wouldn't run on an WinXP or later.
Nice. So let's keep the machine alive just to run that software.
Then Table Master, yeah.
Nice.
That made
That's
my
pretty cool.
week.
That'd make my year. That's amazing.
Let's see. We get another one here. Are there any
Send her
pitfalls
away with
or
an
common
armload of
mistakes you
content.
know? I'm sorry. What was that, Jean?
I said I sent her away with an armload of content of your sorts. Here, have this table
So
pack.
got another question for you guys. Are there any pitfalls or common mistakes that you know you need to avoid when writing these sorts of articles, or any that you've discovered in the process for the zine style articles?
Well, for me, with my tables, it tends to be going down rabbit holes and getting way too specific about something, which, especially for something that's a more general fantasy trip piece, is really a bit of a problem because, yeah, it would appeal to the 3 people who are interested in that particular subtopic, but everybody else is going to say, why did you waste the space? So I think I have to be careful to keep things, less utterly specific, which for me is a problem because I love writing tables and I love getting into really, detailed things that actually, when you come right down to it, are not very useful to anyone except those 3 people.
Like when the pottery table breaks down to, is it a 15th century pottery or was it a 13th century pottery, and how those are going to branch off into the.
Yes, that's exactly the sort of thing. And if it's 13th century pottery, was it the early period or the late period?
I know that pain. And at the my gamers call it specificity sickness, and they are very annoyed sometimes if I get into too much detail, especially about things I enjoy, like food, obviously. But yeah, wow, she's 100% right, maybe 110%. It's so much right that it's actually can't exist fully in 3-dimensional space. You got to go an extra 10% into the 4th dimension. So one of my common pitfalls is I think something's awesome, and then I'm like, I cannot be the judge of my own work. I just can't. So I have a group of people that I go to, and I'm like, that I can trust, that will give me honest opinions, and I let them decide. Like I have a council of people, and sometimes the council makes stupid decisions, but not really. And if it's bad enough, they nuke it and I start over. For zines in particular, for the TFT with how short it is, and this is not a complaint because writing with constraints is just an absolute fantastic way to build yourself up as a writer. And with how short it is, you really have to know exactly what you're doing, and then you have to think about what topic you want to do, and then cut that topic in half. Like if you want to talk about buildings in a city, you need to juggle it down to maybe hospitality buildings, and you need to be more specific. It needs to be inns or taverns, and work on that specific thing. And my grandfather, he used to say, a man can do 100 things okay, or he can do one thing well. And when you're writing, I just feel like quality is almost always better over quantity in everything but random tables and NPC generators. NPC generators are just useful, especially if you get some of the more automated ones they have now online. Some of that stuff's amazing. There's one I like to use for my modern RPG campaigns that's basically a fictional profile. You just click a button, and now you have what amounts to a dossier on a random person with everything from social security numbers fake to where they lived when they were a child. And it that sort of information and convenience at your fingertips can just be amazing,
Especially when your players just pick like the random guy you meant to talk about his hat because you had a cool idea for a hat, and like, oh, we want to know everything about that guy.
I'm going to talk to Sam Snorkel over in the corner, the goblin. He sounds interesting, but the
quest is over
there.
here. Shadowy guy in the corner with the ranger hood on and stuff. No, I want to talk to this guy. I want to talk to that one.
Exactly. And
Had those players.
I just think that trying, I guess I always go back to the sandwich metaphor, right? So you can eat a sandwich, or you can have some chips, or you can eat part of a sandwich and you can have some chips. Or maybe you go on a diet and you just need a little bit of the sandwich and a little bit of the chips. But when you're writing for something so small, you need to be specific and you need to do it well. There is always time for blowing something up. There's not always time for shrinking. So like I try to write small, dream big, and add later if I have to.
It's generally acknowledged that short stories are a harder form than novels because of that.
Yes.
You don't have room to make mistakes.
Let's see. Let's chat over here. They want to know if there is a saving throw against specificity sickness.
Yeah, it's called launch something at the GM's head. They'll send me. There's a GIF on my Discord server, and like everybody will pound it and be like, "Here you go. You're being too specific." I'm like, I'm too specific.
It's like we hit our goal.
Did we hit the goal already?
Yeah.
Excellent. Let me pop that up real quick here. Go back to the project, which is in which window? Did I close it?
Yeah, 1528, 96 backers.
I was like, I'm going to try that again. I didn't see that as an open window. There it is. All right, 96 backers, hit our goal. 9 days to go. So again, if you're just getting here, we just launched about 50 minutes ago. The Hexagram 12 for Kickstarter Zine Quest. So we started the project, I think, for their first Zine Quest, maybe their second one, but I think it was their first one. And we've been putting them out since then. You can get a copy of the PDF only for $5, or the physical and PDF for 10. And then we've got a lot of add-ons and bigger packages if you want to get more into the fantasy trip. That include some of the quick quests, picking 6. If you've missed some of the hexagrams, you can grab up to half dozen of them. Or you can go for the new bestiary. If you missed that, you can hop on it here. So I believe a 100-page book. No, it's bigger than that. I don't want to browse right now. You can get all 12 issues of Hexagram plus a storage vault that holds them and more. Or if you're brand new to the fantasy trip, you can go all in and get everything you need to get running on it. The original big Legacy Edition box, the Decks of Destiny, Hexagram, and some other contents, not all shown in the image there. Or the catch-up bundle, which
That looks like almost everything.
that does look like almost everything. A lot of the Adventures 2, the Bestiary, all 12 hexagrams, Old School Monsters, which is kind of a revisitation of some of the classic monsters from early fantasy gaming. The Decks of Destiny, that looks like all the quick quests, which I particularly like those. Those are little fold out, like I think a 6-page fold out quick quests that are quests you can drop into pretty much any fantasy adventure. You can adapt them. They're designed for the fantasy trip, but they are quick little side quests or lead offs you can kickstart a new quest line with. But they're very drop-inable. Oh, and they're $5 each to add them in. Nice. Pop back over to Twitch here.
And of course, the foes and the foes 2 STLs are available as add-ons, which I have a personal interest in.
Oh yeah, let me scroll to those. You need miniatures for your. Trying to find them here in the window. Still have
I
my
envy your
normal multiple
sculpting
screens.
ability, Gene. About all I can do is carve wood.
There we go, the foes STLs and foes 2. So if
Nice.
you need miniatures for the specific monsters from Sidri, or some pretty good actually skeleton in the orc sets too. Like those are good for just anything. You can get the STL files to print those yourself for $20 for each of the sets, it looks like.
Yep.
And those
Foes
are
2,
really good
for
collections.
example, has some really excellent giant rats. You know,
I think those are
and
the ones
basically-
we had Ben paint those on stream, right?
yeah, I think you did. They're wonderful. They're, scrofulous and mangy and evil looking. Your typical
Yeah,
giant
one
rats.
particularly diseasey looking.
Yeah. That's what I told our sculptor that I wanted, and he came through in spades.
And these are, in general, these are best in a resin printer, not an extruded
Yeah.
printer.
Yeah, they have too much detail to do well on filament. Yeah, filament generally you want to use for terrain, that sort of thing. Resin works better for character figures.
Just get all the details in.
Yeah. I have 4 resin printers and a filament printer on my kitchen table, and I can no longer use it for a kitchen table.
On the other hand, 3D printer.
All right, do we have any more questions in chat? They were discussing the best way to deal with specificity sickness, and they agreed you throw dice at the sickness,
Great.
Especially the munchkin.
especially the large munchkin dice.
I believe Fat Dragon Games had a cardboard, PDF for a fold up helmet that they claimed would protect against most flying dice.
Well, if you made it a thick enough cardboard, probably not that much can die still. That thing is almost a pound.
So I know a guy that's a professional gunsmith, and he's a hoot and a half, and he loves making custom Nerf guns. I don't know why. I guess it's because he works all day long on real guns, and he made a friend of mine a custom Nerf gun that shot Nerf darts that he had sculpted to look like D20s.
Wow.
And just we're at the game store, and when one of the players would act bad, he'd just shoot a dart at him with a D20. Just pull the table out, shoot him, put it back down, continue running, and just like that smooth. And every time it would break me. Like you just launched a D20 at a dude's head. Like, it's not a real D20, but it gets the point across.
Was it the dart ones, or was it those ones that shoot like the balls?
The large, like, ping pong type balls.
Yeah.
He originally had it so that the corners were sharp and defined, and it didn't work though, so he smoothed them out a little. Now that I think about it, it kind of looked like a D30, except it just had 20 sides. The D30s are kind of more
Yeah, the little rounder on them. Yeah.
And I always laughed my butt off when that happened. We would play Living City, Ravensbluff, and I was one of the Living Campaign's GMs for our area, and he was the other one. We would tag off and do things, and sometimes we would just get disruptive players. Sometimes people were just having fun. Sometimes he just shoot you for no reason. Like, you never knew. It was like, slightly,
Just a
yeah, that dad energy. Like, are you paying attention to me, boy? I'm talking to you. And it was just always really fun. So, I wish that I had gotten Mike to make me one. He offered, but I just didn't have the money at the time.
I started running D&D in high school, mostly because people wouldn't let a girl into their games, so I had to start my own. And I had a few players who were boisterous, would be a good way to put it. So I became a dead shot with a D20. The trick is, if you curve your fingers like that and let it roll down there, you can just
Gene's bringing in the secret techniques of the
little cross action going on there.
pretty much.
Like, I learned how to make a fastball out of a D20. Duck.
All right, so we do have one more question here. We have what's the article that you're chomping at the bit to write for Hexagram? And Jack, thank you for the subscription. We appreciate it. I'm glad you found your tribe here.
I know I was talking to, so, like, I just told Steve one day, I was like, I'm just gonna write an article every time I think you have a hexagram that's coming up. And he was like, okay. So, I get bored and I go and I just write. Whatever comes to mind, if I can do it, I'll throw it down. And I've got this one I want to write about portals, right? So portals and gates have been a part of fantasy since, like, ever. Like, all the way back to Edgar Rice Burroughs. My dad used to read the Barsoom trilogy to me, and I have always fascinated by that sort of thing. Instantaneous travel to other dimensions, travel to other times, whatever, travel. And I got to thinking, about 3 weeks back, I was working on my fantasy campaign, and man, portals, that could be really interesting. Like, not necessarily how they work, right? Not necessarily here's the mechanics of it, but types of portals. Do they take you to another place? If they take you to another place, is there things you can't take with you? maybe iron doesn't work. You can't maybe teleport cold iron. You can't teleport metal at all. Why not? What about other things? Do you take water, atmosphere? Is magic like something that doesn't work near a portal? Not because it's not magical, but because maybe it scrambles it somehow. Is magic like kind of like waves of energy, and you portals are just basically disruptors. And I kind of grooved that. I've been writing some notes and thoughts down in an outline. I think that'll be my next hexagram article, because I just like the idea of a GM being like, here's some quirky stuff that can happen to portals on Seedry. This one doesn't do this, this, and this, but it does this. Now that's interesting. And I don't know. I got that into my head, and I was poking around, asking the usual suspects for a fantasy trip. I'm like, has anybody done this for Hexagram or anywhere else? And not really. That's what I'm gonna do.
It's an interesting
Maybe
take, because
you
you
and
have
I
to come
should
up with
collaborate on that.
I'd love
consistent physics, a consistent reason for how they work before you can determine how they're gonna change and work differently.
Right. So it's like it's an analogic type thing, right? If this, then that. So if you can poke down, whatever the base is, then you can start adding the spices in, and eventually you'll get a delicious soup. And I really I like the idea of, portals sometimes not being, this perfect mode of transportation. Like maybe when you go through a portal, you're not instantaneously transported. Maybe you have to walk through it, right? What if it's a shortcut through a dimension? What if fairies made it, and you have to deal with threats in the inside, so it's not safe now. I mean, what it's an adventure. It's journey before destination, I guess you could say. And that would be worthy, I believe, of writing and sharing.
Jean, what
We
about you?
definitely need to I was saying, Christopher and I need to collaborate on that.
Yes,
You write
absolutely.
about,
I
you write
love
about the
working.
portals, I'll write a table for portal results and quirks.
I love working with people. I am better in a team environment. I'm pretty good on my own, but when I work with people, when I have a group or a partner, I don't know, I go into a fifth gear, and I can do some stuff.
Let's do that for the next hexagram.
All right, I'm down with that. You know where I'd be. We can absolutely chat about that. That would be fantastic. I really like the idea.
One thing for your portals,
portals.
a long time ago, I used Security Station, of all things, in a D&D game, and the portal that got you there would only pass living things. If something was fastened to the living thing, like your teeth, that would count, but your intestinal contents, for example, wouldn't. I believe your hair didn't either, mostly because I thought it was funny. So, the ends of your fingernails would disappear. All your clothes would disappear, of course. This would all be left in a pile at the outside edge of the portal.
Hair and nails are not living. They're organic.
Yeah, but they're rooted to them. Yeah, they're rooted. I had a hard time figuring out how you could keep your teeth, but not your hair.
Right.
So I finally basically
horrifying early transporter accidents.
Some people get exact duplicate clones. Other people don't have the teeth no more.
I mean, think of some of the ones on Star Trek.
Team of 5 down, and you just have like 5 whole sets of teeth left behind on the teleporter pad.
Apparently the Tooth Fairy operating it now. She's just overweighting. She's gonna go harvest them. That's the next big horror movie. This summer, the Tooth Fairy is coming for you. Hide under your pillow.
An extra dimensional nudist colony. There you go.
Little mobile game called Crashlands that I used to play, and it's a RPG basically. And the Tooth Fairy, well, there was a being called the Tooth Fairy, but it came for your teeth while they were still attached. and tended to kill you so it could get them more easily.
I've also seen a little just an art thing. It was like, you've heard of the tooth fairy. It's actually a subclass of the larger bone fairy.
Yikes.
There's
And much more.
there's a bit of folklore my grandfather told me. I was a kid, and they have these things called bone eaters, and they're sort of like the Appalachian hide behinds. You know, they can't. No one's ever seen them. You just see what's occurs, and I always thought it was like a kind of folklore memory for osteogenesis or other bone diseases, but bone eaters would sneak up in your home at night, and they would start with the toes, and they'd nibble the toes, and they'd get the bones, and they'd get the metatarsals, and then if you keep letting it go on, it would eat and eat and eat, and the flesh would still be there, but it had a way to go in and just eat the bones right out of your skin, leaving the muscle, the skin, and flesh alive. I always thought that was interesting, and I remember the first time I ever saw the second Harry Potter movie, where Gilderoy Lockhart, turns Harry's arm into like goo. I thought of that. I was like, I wonder if they got that from there, or maybe if that was just sort of just a random convergence of thought evolution. But yeah, that doesn't just eat your teeth; it eats your bones. Oh, and they did a bone drinker in Star Trek Lower Decks with the Moopsie, and that was another one. I was like, okay, that's just too on the nose and scary, and I gotta turn it off. And I'm a big guy, but I
just gonna nope out the rest of that one.
Yeah, I'm just can't do it.
All right, let me pull the project up one more time for folks to take a look at, so we can share the screen.
It's over 2,000 now.
Find where I put that screen on my screen. Here we go. Jump back up to the top of it. So again, this launched about an hour ago, and we're going to be running it for the next 9 days. So next Saturday will be the closing of it. Next Sunday will be the closing of it. So it's made its goal already. So feel free to go ahead and fund it. Get anything you missed. You can get back issues of Hexagram, quick quests, any of the newer fantasy trip content you might have missed out on. The STL files, all sorts of things. Daryl's loaded this up with add-ons and various packages. So hop it over, check that out. Brandon will drop that link into the chat. And I want to thank Jean and Christopher for coming and hanging out and talking with us today. I appreciate you guys coming in.
Yeah, not a problem.
Back to our window here. Oops. Not this one, not that one. Too many windows, not enough screen. There you go, stop sharing.
That's why I have screens.
I usually have at least two, but for now, right here, I just got this one. So it's like, I have to find all the windows. Thank you for coming in.
The usage of any computer resource, whether it's memory space or screens or anything else, expands proportional to the square of the availability of that resource. Double your memory, you've got 4 times as much to put in it. So you'll never keep up with the screens.
Your memory, your screen space, all of that stuff will always fill up.
There's a portable USB powered HDMI second screen you can get from Amazon for about $80.
I've got a little one. It's about a 7 or 8 inch screen that, it's just HDMI or USB-C powered that I use for an extra one at home. Also closets. Same principle goes for closets as computer RAM and desk space or window space.
Yeah.
And cats.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming out. We appreciate you joining us. We appreciate you guys joining us, chat, and hanging out with us and asking questions. We will be back next week I believe we're going to be bringing out tabloids next week. So we're going to get some people in here, play tabloids to celebrate it being finally available in your local stores. So if you haven't seen that one, tune in. We'll play it on stream. It's a party game about making the wildest supermarket tabloid headlines. Headlines.
Yeah.
I can say words.
I played a
Word.
playtest version of it, and it is hilarious.
It is a fun one. It is a fun one. It's a good party game. But we will see everybody next week on SJGames Live. Thank you so much for coming out. We'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.